Hello, and welcome to the TrailManners podcast. I'm your host, Eric Manning, coming to you from the beautiful trails in Ogden, Utah, but connecting you to wherever trail, ultra, and mountain running takes us. We'll bring trail running to life with amazing athletes, discuss the latest topics, epic journeys, and get you stoked for your next trail adventure. We're sharing the moments that make life special, because even a rough day on the trail beats a good day indoors, and nothing beats time spent with good friends and great stories. Catch us here weekly for your dose of dirt, vert, and good vibes. So now it's time to top off your water, grab some cheese curds, and join us for this week's podcast, where we take you deep into the heart of our sport. It's go time. Hello and welcome to episode number 323 of the TrailManners podcast. The TrailManners podcast is produced for your enjoyment, and show notes are found at TrailManners.com. Come back often, and please feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at TrailManners. And don't forget to subscribe, review, and rate us on iTunes. If you're so inclined, TrailManners would really appreciate any donations via our website at TrailManners.com. And please remember to share us with your friends. All links are in the show notes. Now let's get after it. All right, welcome back to another episode of the TrailManners podcast. I'm your host, Eric Manning. This is episode number 323. We're just going to call this one the Bear. Just the Bear. Just like maybe the Bear 100, but I think we'll just stick with the Bear. Launch date, 11/28/23. If you hadn't listened to our previous episode, that was our first segment of Runcation that we're going to dive into. And as I mentioned, next one will be in Bellingham, Washington. But your next episodes after the Bear, we've got our Christmas gift guides coming up. We got 2 shows, some super special guests, so stay tuned for that. And I want to give a quick shout out to Scott from Michigan. Thanks for buying some TrailManners swag. That was surprising, and I appreciate that. It's on its way. Hope you get it soon, and I'd love to see some pics. So. All right, so with this episode, there's going to be a question about midway through the show, so stay tuned and stay focused, because we will have a contest with a giveaway if you can post the correct answer. Now, I know if one person gets it right, the rest of you should if you're paying attention, but you could also have somebody try and throw you for a loop and give the wrong answer to trick you. So pay attention. That's later in the show. But let's get to our guests. We have 2 guests in the studio today. I'll welcome them in. We've got first time to the show. We got Cody Draper, the race director of the Bear 100. Cody, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good.
Thanks for joining us. Yeah, first time on the show.
Yeah.
So
this is a pretty sweet setup here.
Thanks. Appreciate that. And then we've got a returning guest. He's been here before. He's done this thing. He's made the rounds. The right-hand man of the Bear 100. We've got Preston Wood.
Happy to be here.
All right.
The studio's looking great. You're looking great.
Thanks.
Everything about this is great.
Man. And that's the end of the show. We're going to leave on a high note, so we'll finish there. But no, we got the Bear 100. That's the whole focus of this show. We got some great questions, some fun time, and it's coming up. So the date this year is the 27th and 28th of September, I guess in 2024, not this year. We've already done that. But it's a point-to-point race here in Utah, ends in Idaho, correct?
Correct.
Yep.
Okay, kind of threw me for a loop a little bit here. There are qualifications to run the Bear. You can't just sign up off the couch and pull a Dean Carnassus. So what are the qualifications to run the Bear? What do you got to do in order to run the Bear besides register?
Well, you need to have run either a 100-miler before. If not, then you can run a 50-miler, 100K, kind of just prove that you know how to fuel, how to get yourself from one point to the other. And it's not too hard. There's no time. Well, there's just kind of show that you're not a total noob, and it'll be okay.
You'll survive.
Yeah.
Less stress for the race directing crew and people that know you can potentially help yourself out.
The Bear's pretty popular for first-time 100-milers, though. There's quite a few that it is their first. And so we get a lot of questions about people that are trying to do their qualification race and get ready and get to the start line. So, Yeah, we love first timers. It doesn't mean that you have to be an expert to run the Bear, but you do need to run a 50 mile or 100K.
But there's a lot of return runners though because of how amazing this race is.
Lots, yeah. And I just wanted to back up. We were actually talking about first timers because it was my first 100-mile race that I did way back in 2017. And going back to that qualification standard, I was under the impression that Leland actually checked that qualification standard because it's been, and for those that don't know, Leland was the previous race director of the Bear 100, him and his team. But so I jumped into the Pony Express 50 miler because that's just like the Bear.
It's pretty close.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
And shout out Davy Crockett, I guess. But yeah, we actually check it, and you don't have to have run it before you sign up. You can run the qualification race anytime before race day. So that's just something to clarify. And yes, we do get a lot of return runners. That's why I just kept going back until Cody let me start to help.
And you told him that, so he listened, right? You didn't ask him; you just told him.
Just told him.
Okay,
I made him.
You made him, forced him. And the Bear is a Western and Hard Rock qualifier as well. So you finish the Bear, you've got your qualifiers to those two coveted races, and your chances of getting in are super good.
All it takes is one ticket.
Yeah.
You know, my one ticket in 2017 at the Bear led to Western States in 2018.
Stop rubbing that in, please.
I know there's people out there listening. They're like, hey, if you don't have Preston back, that's totally cool. So you guys just wrapped up the 25th year. That's pretty freaking cool, to be honest with you. That's like a solid year with a men's course record.
Yeah, that was impressive.
That's crazy. I was there. My wife was running the Bear, and I remember when someone said, oh, yeah, the first person just came across. I'm like, it just barely got dark.
Yeah. He finished on Friday.
Yeah, so Zachary Garner, 23 years young, 17 hours and 11 minutes, and the previous record was in 2012, 1750. So that stood for, my math is right, like 11 years. So that's pretty stout. The women's course record by Casey Lichtig is 2027 in 2016. So that's a stout one, right?
It's pretty stout. That was actually the Snow Bear year.
Oh,
and so that was the out and back to Tony Grove.
That's right.
So that's sort of with an asterisk there.
Yeah, and that wasn't easy either way, right?
No.
I mean, with that snow, I remember
horrible
that
conditions.
That was horrible. Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, registration. This show's launching on the 28th, as I mentioned, of November, which is a Tuesday. Registration for the Bear opens December 1st, and to clarify, that is going to be on a Friday. Little bit of a curveball on the date, but really December 1st, there's a lot of races that open up on that type of thing. And I liked you said the Hard Rock and Western, the lotteries are Saturday the 2nd. So you open just before, and then you'll get maybe a mad rush.
Yep, that's typically what we see is right after those lotteries, there's a lot of people going, okay, plan B, I didn't get in, my dream race, what can I do to go qualify for next year and go have a good time doing so? And that's the Bear.
Well, and to be honest, I mean, just because the name's Hard Rock and Western, obviously the history, but the Bear, man, that's like, it's not really, like, it could be your plan B, but it's still an A race.
We're a little biased, but yeah, it's a pretty good plan B.
It's pretty solid.
Yeah, we honestly feel like it's one of the premier mountain races in the entire country. Obviously, we're biased, Cody especially, living in Cache Valley, but our goal is to make it one of the premier events, but keep our low-key vibe that's been established for years. You know, we want people to feel like they're taken care of, but they're getting a bit of an old school experience without all the corporate involvement. Not that that's bad, but we just have a certain vibe that we're going for.
Which I think is super cool because, like I said, I was up there, and you know, one of my favorite things about the Bear, because I've crewed and paced it so many times, is how easy it is. Oh my gosh! Like I've hung out and kind of crewed at Western. Oh, that was the longest 17 days of my life. It felt like that's
stressful.
That's tough. But I mean, you're driving forever, hoping you get there before your runner runs there.
Yeah,
and then you're taking shuttles here, and it's a challenge. And then you look at Hard Rock. I mean, some of those places aren't even fun to get to. So I love the fact that the Bear is easier to crew, easier to pace. So again, you talk about that old school feel, but you can kind of, if you want, you can kind of have your whole tribe show up and support you, whether it's just to see you at an aid station, then go home. It's not, at the end of the world. But I will say, and I'm going off script here a little bit, when I went, I believe it was Tony's Grove aid station, just waiting for my runner, saw a lot of good people. They had French fries. What is up with that? I was watching and little cups of fries. How about making it easier for me?
They know how to take care of people.
Oh my gosh.
We love that aid.
That was unreal. Like, I saw a few people I know, but they had like the full menu. They had other stuff too, but I couldn't get past the French fries because that was so cool.
Yeah, our captain there, Tony, she's incredible. Her and her family do an incredible job. Kind of fun that her name's Tony and it's at Tony Grove.
Kind of ironic. We just named it after her, I guess.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
Yeah, that was fantastic. But last year, as I mentioned, registration, you filled in 2.5 days. Do you think same this year? Do you think a little sooner, or do you think that big influx will come after Western Hard Rock?
I think it'll fill right after the whole lottery. So, yeah, be watching close. If you want to be for sure in on that Saturday, better be signed up by Saturday if you want to get in.
And it gives you plenty of time to train.
Yep.
Plenty.
Like a couple months.
And then something else important to touch on is in previous years, our wait list would clear completely. So it was kind of this idea that, I'll just get on the Bear wait list and then I'll get the chance to run if I want to.
Yeah.
And, this was the first year where we didn't clear the whole wait list and we had to turn some people away. And that's never fun as a race director. But we just want to put that out there that it will move. There will be several people that get a chance, over 100 probably, that will get a chance to come off the wait list, but I wouldn't bank on it if you really want to run the race.
And didn't this year you have the opportunity to register that morning? If you're on the if you're on the wait list, you could get in that morning. People didn't check in.
It was the night before. We
Okay.
shut it down at the race check-in Thursday afternoon.
Okay.
But we had people sitting there hoping to get in, and it's heartbreaking to turn them away. They were all dressed and ready to go. They would have started right then if I'd have let them.
And I talked to one of those people at one of the aid stations, and that individual was able to at least do a lot of pacing.
Yeah.
So,
It is heartbreaking though. It's hard to turn people away.
I couldn't imagine. So, all right. So when we mentioned Leland, you talk old school. I mean, that's just to a T. The stories and the history of that, of him, just running out ahead of everybody and throwing flags down on the course and people getting lost.
What were those called, Cody?
Leland poops.
Leland poops.
Yep.
Because he would
rip off, sections of ribbon and just drop them on the trail. So if you saw little pieces of garbage strewn about the course, you knew you're on track.
Yeah, and especially because the wind never blows, it stays there.
Well, he didn't want to stop and tie it because he would lose time.
Yeah.
He was also racing.
Yeah,
so his time was legit. He just started an hour ahead of everybody. And his game was see how many people he can stay in front of.
That's so funny.
And hopefully he makes it till dark before the leader passes him. But it was pretty funny.
And I know that changed over the course of time, but it seems like you guys probably have it dialed in a little bit more than that.
Yeah. We have a great marking team. They did a wonderful job this year and previous years as well.
So when did you take it over from Leland? Do you remember?
This was the second year where I've been in charge.
All right.
I've been helping though for quite some time. Back in 2006 was the first year that I helped in some way. And actually, as I just met Leland and we drove up into the mountains and marked a section, he just dropped us off and said, run down this road and mark until you see me again. And I had no idea what we were doing. And I was with a friend of mine, and it was an awesome adventure. It was so much fun, and we helped him in different ways ever since.
That's awesome. Yeah, my one good Leland story is he came to the Ogden area. This was a long time ago. Like, I was barely getting into trail running, and there was a group. I was very fortunate to be able to run with this group at the time, and it was a night run. And it was one of my first real night runs. And we started at 12th Street, and Leland shows up. And I'd never met him, didn't know who he was, but he had like baggy sweats on. He had a windbreaker jacket that it was probably like 7 or 8 different colors. I thought he was break dancing, to be honest with you, when he showed up.
I mean, he's got some swag.
He did. And then we took off, and next thing you know, we stop. And everybody stops for a minute, and he had a peanut butter and honey or peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and he hid it in a tree so he could get it on the way back.
Oh, smart.
And I'm like, I'm new to this game, and I'm thinking to myself, I love trail running.
This is the best.
So that was my first Leland experience. I will honestly never, ever forget. So is Leland still involved with the race then too?
Not so much. He's enjoying playing tennis.
Yeah,
he's taken up that hobby, and he's a semi-pro tennis player. He's really good.
Well, that's the thing. So Leland probably can't do anything just like
half-heartedly.
recreationally.
No.
He's got to
all
gets in. So if he finds the pickleball world, we're in trouble.
We
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
Cody ran into him on Thanksgiving, actually.
Yeah, just ran into him out on the trail and had a quick chat. But he was telling me about he ran a 5K on a trail race and placed in his age group for some national level.
Oh my gosh!
Just a week or two ago. I need to look up and figure out what race that was. But he's still killing it with just tennis fitness.
Man, I wish I could do that.
There's a lot of great Leland stories out there.
Oh, there are. There sure are. that's the one that always sticks in my craw. But yeah, Leland's he's a riot. Okay, so I had a question that someone asked me to ask, and this is a solid question, so I appreciate that. I call it a call-in question. So you've both crewed and paced and run hundreds, right?
Yep.
How do you prepare to be on point for that long as a race director? Like, what's different about it? Because it is. I mean, I've done some race directing, not at this level, right? But
It's so much harder than
Yeah.
running the race. I am just wrecked for weeks afterward. It is so hard. The stress levels through the roof. There's usually stuff's going pretty well, but there's always stuff that kicks up little wrinkles along the way that you're a little worried about. And just, I don't know. You just think of all the things that could go wrong, and suddenly you have to try to account for that. So I'm laying in bed thinking of all the checklist of things that I need to remember to do or haven't done, and it's just nonstop. I think about it all year long. My poor family, they get tired of talking about the bear. If I say the bear one more time at home, they're going to kill me. And so it's just always on.
But I mean, there's like lead up, obviously. I mean, you got registration opening.
Yep.
That kind of takes care of itself online. And then you're kind of just preparing year round, but just different levels, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to buy gear off season, different things like that, so that I can not be stressed in the last month when everything goes to execution. Yeah, so I'm doing stuff all year, and there's a ton of just questions and helping people as they're working through their first 100 or their first big trail run, and they want some guidance, and so they're always reaching out to the race director and trying to get some tips and ideas. So there's always work to do.
Speaking of the gear, Cody's garage is a modern marvel of construction.
Yeah.
The amount of shelves and places to put things. We have so much stuff in his garage. People would be amazed at what he's able to fit in his garage.
I have
Car
really
fit?
tall ceilings.
All
and
his cars all fit.
Yeah, it's nice 3-car garage that's just 15-foot ceilings, and so I can go floor to ceiling shelves.
It's pretty incredible.
It's pretty sweet.
Well, I'm gonna have to take a picture.
My neighbors are so confused. I have coolers and water jugs coming out of my eyeballs, and they're just like, "What are you doing?"
What does this guy do for a
Yeah.
living?
And then
What's his hobby?
It gets a little chaotic right at race week as the aid stations come by and pick up their stuff, and there's food everywhere, and just hundreds and hundreds of cans of 2 liters of Coke and Sprite and Mountain Dew. Yeah, shopping with me is hilarious.
The Costco, yeah.
Yep, just carts of just junk food. It's like, these guys are runners. What's going on?
They got all this good yummy
It's
stuff.
so fun to buy food for the bear.
Well, and you mentioned a little bit too, like preparing for it with. So here's a question that maybe some people would want to hear, right? Instead of emailing you a question, what would you both look at as good? I've never run 100. I want to run the bear. What's a good race for me to run before that? What would you both recommend as some races that will just kind of help the first time Bear 100 runner be more prepared?
My favorite recommendation is the White Pine 50, which is up in the same area. It starts and finishes at Beaver Mountain, and you run about 15, 20 miles of the bear course during that 50-miler, and it's all in the same area. So you get to experience the trails without the full point-to-point. This is a sweet loop that goes through the mountains, and so you see adjacent areas that you wouldn't see during the bear, but you get enough of the taste of the bear that you're like, okay, I think I have a pretty good sense of what's going on. And that's in August, so it's a month or 2 ahead of the bear, and so you have plenty of time to recover from that 50 miler.
Yeah, and I just to add on with White Pine, excuse me, you get to see some parts of the Bear that maybe people don't get to see during the daytime.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, the prettiest part of the Bear 100 course, you essentially run during the day during White Pine. And so you get to see some things that you wouldn't normally get to see. Piggybacking off that, my recommendation is always the newly renamed Snowy Peaks 50. Previously, a different name.
You can say it.
Yeah, the Squaw Peak 50. I just don't want to offend anybody.
Well, that's what it was called.
Yeah, it's what it was called.
Change the name of it.
I think that's a good barometer. Early season race. It's in June in Utah County, old 50-mile loop. John Bozung's been the race director forever down there. And it's pretty bare bones, but I think it's a good tester. It gave me a lot of confidence as my first mountain 50 that I had run before the Bear 100. So that's the one that I would always say. So between those two, the two good local options. But really, I would say just try to find something that has 8 to 10,000 feet of vertical gain and a 50 miler, and it'd be pretty comparable.
Well, the Bear's got 22 and change, right? Vert overall, and you're still, I think you're right around averaging 7,300 feet average. Max is 9,000. Minimum's almost 5. So it's a good. I mean, you'd like to say you're cruising at that point. It's no Leadville where you're just hovering.
It's not high elevation, but it's not easy either.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of that mid elevation level where the back half of the Bear is actually deceivingly difficult because it's sustained at 6,000 to 8,000 feet the whole time, and you don't get to have those breaks of running down at the lower elevation to kind of catch your breath.
And most of the climbing is rumored to be at the front half of the Bear too. Like most of the climb, right?
Yep.
At the
by
back half.
By Tony Grove, mile 52-ish, you have covered 2/3 of the climbing.
Wow. That's kind of good to hear for your quads.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Or is it when the downhill, right?
Yeah, if you can get to Tony Grove with your quads intact, you're probably going to have a pretty good day if your stomach and everything is holding as well, because there's a lot of running to be had after Tony Grove.
If you can.
For sure.
Yeah, if you can. Well, it's funny you say White Pine. So me and my wife were registered for White Pine last year. Last year.
Oh, last year.
Yeah, but we took on our own event and it happened to be the same day, so we couldn't run it. And so I'm anxiously waiting for registration to open for White Pine. I got the date. I sent a message to the race director. I'm like, hey, I don't want to miss it this year. I definitely want to do this for that reason, but it's also you can fish while you're running the race 10-car style. But there's no info on when registration opens, so it's kind of got me angsty.
Well, I'm friends with Jason, the race director, so I'll get an inside scoop for you.
Because it's making me anxious.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but there's another race that exact date I want to run too. So I'm like, if it's not going to go down, I need to know now. Yeah.
I think part of it is Beaver Mountain's under construction right now.
Yeah.
And they're building a new lodge, and it's kind of just torn everything apart there. Yeah. And so they're kind of just working through some of those logistics as they're hosting the start and finish line there. So it's a little bit tricky.
Yeah. I reached out to him a few months ago about the date, and he gave that to me, which I appreciated. But yeah, I keep clicking ultra sign up. I'm looking. It's not there. Where is it?
The good thing is I don't think that'll sell out. It's getting more popular for sure, but not quite to.
He has a wait list, and it's he did clear it this year though. So
nice.
Yeah,
that's good.
So he did sell out.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. How many permits does he have then?
I think it's only 100 runners.
Okay, that makes sense. I wasn't aware.
That's a great number for a race.
It's just right. It's really fun. I host a aid station every year with my wife and kids for that race, and just go and have fun, and it's a blast to watch the runners on that one.
So here's the trivia question. So listen, everybody, if you're still listening to the podcast, you need to know this answer, and then you post it in the comments, wherever. I'll see them all, and I'll put you in a drawing. I want to know what the cap is for the Bear 100. The number. What's the cap?
You want me to say it out loud?
You have to, or no one will know the answer.
Well, it's a secret. No, it's not a secret.
Okay, good. Because I was saying, new question. What color's Preston's hat?
It is.
The cap is 350 runners.
Okay, that's how it's been, right? Pretty much.
Yeah. This last year, we had we bumped above the 350 for a lot of it right up at the end, just to try to get as many people into the race as possible, because you always have a few that drop out as they're sick or otherwise unable to join us. And so, but our permit's for 350.
Okay, perfect. That's good to know. So what's the planning and organizing look like for a 100-miler of this magnitude? Because obviously there's a lot of pieces. And I think as a runner, as a crew, as a pacer, as a bystander, sometimes you just don't think of little nuances. So without going through like step by step, what's it like? I mean, we talk about open registration and you buy things in the off season, but what's the planning and organization like?
We have a great team, and that helps a lot. And so we do a good job of delegating tasks out. But essentially, it's spreadsheets after spreadsheets. I'm a spreadsheet nut, so it works out.
This is Cody's biggest strength. He's a great leader, and he's a great delegator, and he keeps getting better at it. But his organization skills are top notch. I've told him this. There's no way that I could run the Bear as tight and as well as he does because of his organization skills.
So yeah, it's just lots and lots of spreadsheets. We do have a couple meetings throughout the year, but not too many, just because we can stay connected. A lot of my top crew, the team that we have, we're all runners, so we get together and go run together, have some fun on the trails, talk about stuff. So it seems I'm always talking about the Bear. Hey, we should do this. And what about this? And I get to go. Just brainstorm with the team out on the trails.
That makes it nice, I guess, too, on the level where, there is a difference. Being a runner in these events, looking at it from the runner's perspective, but also getting a great view of when you're not a runner, right? Behind the scenes, if you will. So then you kind of get that double dose of it, which is, I think, probably very helpful, right? Yeah. Having people that have experienced it before and can maybe make minor tweaks.
It is, and I want to just kind of interject a quick story kind of that shows the organization level that we have from this year. I think people might enjoy it. Something that Cody and I were talking about. We were workshopping some ideas on our run this morning. But, little things that you don't think of as a runner that you don't think are important. For example, having a good sweeper team that's prepared and ready to go when things happen. This year at the Bear, we were talking about how, does it go smooth? The stresses of being a race director, so Cody and I were at the finish line. It was about 1:30-ish in the morning, and we're just kind of, the first few runners have come through. We probably had 6 or 7, and all of a sudden we notice on our inReach that is with our sweeps that they had sent a stress signal, not an all-out SOS, but there was something going on. And so immediately we went into action with our plan. So our sweeps were messaging Cody through the Garmin inReach, and me and Steve, who's on our committee, took off. And this is the best part of the story, in my opinion, is Steve's trying to change into running clothes because he's going to go run to where they're at to see what's going on, because they don't have a radio. They just have the inReach. And I'm driving 90 miles an hour in Logan Canyon. Steve said, I hope we don't get pulled over. And I said, I hope we do, because then we might get some help. To get, if search and rescue needs to come, they'll at least, be aware of what's going on. Our radio team starts radioing, and they advise search and rescue. Our whole operation worked perfectly. We get into Tony Grove because the runner was reportedly stopped by White Pine Lake, which is about 2.5 miles outside of the Tony Grove aid station. And, so we run Steven in there. He was in way better shape than me. He gets to him super quick. We follow along, me and Michelle, who is our volunteer coordinator and also an RN. And Steve gets there. They start reporting out to search and rescue. The runner, who was an experienced ultra runner, he's run the Bear almost every year.
Something like 16 times?
Yeah.
Wow.
He had fallen and hit his head and had a concussion and a big gash on his head. And our sweep team did exactly what they were supposed to. They had fire starting gear. They started a fire. They got him sitting down, relaxed, and we were able to get him out of there safely. Those are the types of organization things that we put in place that hopefully we never have to use.
Yeah.
Hopefully it never happens, but I just wanted to emphasize, those are the things as a runner you don't always think about. Yeah. And we're there. We want everybody to be safe. We want everybody to achieve their goal if they can. And, it was pretty cool this year to watch our team execute so well. And Nicole, who was our course marking and sweep coordinator, she was very clear with instructions with them. And so our sweeps did an excellent job.
That's always good, because that is something you don't think about. And as a race director, being part of the race, it's something you hope you don't have to deal with, right?
It's one of the biggest stresses, just the medical piece of it. You know, you don't want anybody seriously injured or any type of major catastrophic event happen to occur on the trail. So,
well, and as a runner, you don't think about it either, right? You don't think something's going to happen to me out there, right? As one of those things, but when it does, it's a peace of mind knowing that there's a plan in place, right? And it's a lot of races have done that, but I know that really kicked into high gear a couple of years ago when more and more races were starting to think through more of an evacuation process, more of like worst case scenario emergency process. And a lot already had those, I'm sure, but I think it was one of those things where people like, we better have this. And the other thing I noticed too is a lot of the permitting organizations, the Forest Service and things like that, heard wind of a certain event, and they were like, we're going to probably dial in a little tighter to make sure you're ready if something happens, right?
Well, there was a situation at Wasatch in, was it 2017, where a lady had a cardiac event at the top of Bear Canyon, and the sweepers saved her life, did CPR. And so, I mean, those are the things that when a system works, I mean, I was super proud of our team, how the system in place worked.
And how important are the volunteers at an event like this? Because it really is. You always say, make sure you thank your volunteers, but I mean, and I try to do that on every race.
It's so understated to say it wouldn't happen without them.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to express it. It's amazing. And that's really all we're doing is coordinating all of that, because it takes an army. I mean, there's over 200 volunteers in different ways. There's aid station volunteers. There's a huge radio crew that are spending lots of effort. Yep.
They're the best.
I got a few messages from them today talking about ideas for next year, and they want to have a call and talk to me about some of these ideas, and I love it. It's way in the off season, but they're already working on next year's plan, and so they're amazing.
Well, it's again, you know, I've 1 year attempted to run the Bear that I got in, and it was 2 weeks after I finished Wasatch, and I made it to mile 40, and I just didn't want to be there. I was hurt. I was just like, just kind of don't want to be here today. But you see a lot when you're crewing and pacing, and unreal at the level. And I think the fun part for me, and this happens at other races too, but I see it more at the Bear, and I've been there a lot too, but the excitement and the ownership the volunteers have. Like, they take a lot of pride in being a volunteer at the Bear. It's not just a volunteer, hey, I'm going to do some time, my buddy asked me to come help him. It was like they were the Bear, right?
Exactly. We have people that have been volunteering for almost all 25 years.
Yeah.
And it's impressive.
It is. I mean, they take, like you mentioned, it's kind of like they take it to the next level, because it's like, I don't know. It's just really cool to see on the other side when you just watch how they work together. And I know probably as the race director and part of that, it's like you have your volunteer crew, say it's Tony Grove, and it's like, okay, I've got 100% confidence. I don't have to worry about Tony Grove, right? And I don't have to worry about this one. They're dialing it in, so now I can focus on some of the other stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You can focus on the runners and not have to worry about the volunteers, because they know what they're doing.
Yeah. So being a part of the Bear for so long, I didn't realize you were a part of it for so long, so that's kind of nice as well. But being a runner as well and running all these different types of events, have you made any changes kind of based off your experience too as like runners? Like, hey, this would be a fun idea. I saw this at this race, or, maybe, we could do this a little different than it has been done in the past. Or, I mean, have you made some of those types of changes?
Yeah. We've done a lot with course marking, just from what I've seen out in, we talked earlier about Leland poops and kind of the extent of that. And now it's into full reflectors and night visibility. That's a critical piece. Yeah, this year we implemented a critical junction ahead sign, as certain places on the course are notorious for people missing a turn as you're just zoning out and cruising along. And you're going from a obvious road or trail onto a lesser busy trail, and it's tricky to catch that. And if you miss it, it's a big deal. And so we implemented little things like that you pick up from other races, and that's one that I stole from Tushers as I ran that and saw that idea. They have multiple distances all sharing the same course, and so they use that same idea of, hey, critical junction ahead, so that you could pay attention to going on the right direction for your distance. And we did the same thing, and I had so many comments about how that was beneficial.
I would say the biggest one that I've seen that Cody has instituted is the finish line changes. Mm-hmm. Cody does his best, and I think this year and last year he achieved he shook everybody's hand as they finished. He gave everybody the buckle. I think that's pretty unique and cool. I know lots of races do it now, but, I remember finishing the Bear, and, the radio team is who gave me well, they didn't even give buckles. They were just there to shake your hand as you finished, and it's a little anticlimactic. Also, we got a new finish line chute this year. Our finish line was a new location this year that we hope to be able to continue with. It's right at the beach. It was pretty awesome. So if you want to come see the new finish line, I think we're going to keep it as long as possible. But
yeah, it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's something that, just little things to make it feel like a big deal, because it's a big deal to finish a 100-miler.
Oh, yeah.
And those are my two favorite things that Cody's put in place.
I like that idea. My first ultra was a 50K in Colorado. It was a 4-loop course, and when I finished, they were tearing the tent down, and I only had like pizza crust left because I finished so near the very, very last. It was anticlimactic.
Well, we did this year at the very end. We have to apologize. There was a total microburst that came in and just like almost blew us away. You can ask Jim. Jim Skaggs was there, and like we had to just fly to tear everything down because it got crazy.
Yeah, we had volunteers holding down the tent as it was being lifted up off the ground and blown away. So people are just hanging on. holding on to it, using their body weight.
And you kind of mentioned that. That's one of the questions, because one of the things the Bear is notorious for is weather, right? I mean, it is kind of a interesting time in Utah. The end of September, you never know what's going to happen. We mentioned earlier the snow, the snow bear, where it's an out and back. Where there's been years of like you take 4 steps forward and 8 steps back on the mud. It's a wild card, but this year's weather was the best I remember it ever. On the high temps weren't high and the cool temps weren't cool. It was just like this sweet zone.
Knock on wood, we want that every year somehow. Right? It turns out that about 1 in every 10 years is pretty rough weather-wise. If that storm lands on the wrong weekend, it's a problem.
Yeah.
And it's a challenge to you can't schedule around that, of course.
Yeah.
And so you just take what you can get. Thankfully, runners are pretty durable and can just make do with whatever, and you dress accordingly depending on the weather.
And we've had a pretty good run though since 2019. I think that was the last year that it was real bad, right? So we're probably due.
Oh, just said that.
Yeah, just be
knock on wood.
There goes the registration dropping. Now it's going to fill up in 3.5 days and not 2.5 days. But I mean, it is. But those weather ones, as a runner, sometimes they make memories. And I didn't say good or bad. I said memories, because it could go either way. But sometimes, I mean, the lore lives on a little bit longer with those weather ones. Like, I ran the Bear in 20 rain. And
you don't even know how hard it was that year.
Yeah. The hardest.
Yeah. We didn't have French fries.
No markings, no food, and it was muddy.
Yeah. So what would you both consider some of the biggest challenges as a 100-mile race director of this event? What are some of the challenges? I mean, we probably could say weather because you can't predict it, but what
weather's
are
tricky. Yeah, we talked about medical a little bit. That's a challenge, just making sure that people are safe out there. Really, it's just a giant moving party. And a lot of races have the luxury of, a loop course, or you get to repeat aid stations. We have 12 aid stations that are scattered throughout, counting the finish, and they're hard to get to. It's impressive the amount of work that just the aid stations have to do to be ready for the runners, and I don't think they get enough credit for that.
Yeah, I would agree. Just thinking about some of our aid stations this year. The work that they had to do, and then, still fell short in a few small areas. And, I think that this rolls into my thought is I'm a people pleaser. I'm in sales. I like to tell people what they want to hear. Cody's much better at telling people no. But I think trying to keep everybody happy is one of the hardest things, because you're never going to keep everybody happy, no matter how good the race goes, no matter how incredible. I mean, one of our best aid stations this year, we had a couple people complain about it, and it's like, well, we know that was the best aid station, and so people are never always they're not always going to be happy, but I just want them to know how hard we try to make them all happy and to make it a great experience, because we do everything we can. That's all we care about, is we want the runners to have the best experience. I
agree.
Well, I think so much has changed. I mean, this could be like 7-episode show when you talk about how much has changed in trail and ultra running. But, 10, 15 years ago, if there was an aid station, with anything warm, you were like in heaven, right? And now we're in a place where there's French fries, and now you've got these 200s with full menus with like legit food. And I think sometimes people's expectations, and that's why I like, Preston said it earlier, and I talk about this a lot on the show, is like kind of that old school, like an El Vaquero still that way. And there's still some out there, Jim's Races on the Island. There's still some like that. It's just kind of like, this is what you get, right? Like, we'll take care of you and you get this, but we're in a place now where everybody just wants everything. It's like, oh, you have this hydration at your aid station? I want this kind. And you're like, well, bring it and you can have it. You know what I mean? But it's like the expectation of brands and flavors and everything else. I can only imagine you hear some of that stuff, and it blows my mind. So let's talk about the Rocky Mountain Slam.
Yeah, we love to host the Rocky Mountain Slam every year, as the Bear is the host and the anchor race for that series. You need to run 4 races out of a list of now 8 choices. The only mandatory one is the Bear at the end of it, as we provide the award. But the way we've set it up now is that there's 2 races in June, 2 in July, 2 in August, and 2 in September to choose from. So if you line it up right, you can have 1 a month. And what we love about the Rocky Mountain Slam, it really is the prettiest, most rugged mountain races in the West. And you get to experience it, kind of choosing your own adventure along the way.
So when you say races, these are 100-milers, folks. These aren't just races. And the Rocky Mountain Slam has been around originally for a very long time. And there was 5 races or 6 originally?
Originally it was 4, and then quickly moved to 5,
Yep.
and then 6. And then we just recently expanded it to 8.
Do you know the 8 off the top of your head?
Yeah, we can do Scout Mountain 100 in June, Bighorn 100 in June. July, we have Hard Rock and Ouray as the 2 options in July. Okay. In August, we have Leadville and Wyoming Range 100. And then in September, you have Wasatch and the Bear.
Nice. Those are some pretty... I mean, I don't know as much about, say, like Wyoming Range, because it's fairly new.
It's a fairly new race.
Yeah.
That's rugged.
And you won that
kind
one
of
year,
fits.
right?
No,
It was a
I haven't
different
run
one.
that. It was a similar course.
It was adjacent.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's a great race where it's up and coming on a beautiful course that's kind of showing off a different part of the world that we love to showcase.
Nice.
Yeah, and just wanted to emphasize a few things. So those original 4, the idea behind it was a Phil Lowry and a Leland idea to try to draw more interest to the Bear. They thought, hey, these other races are kind of full. Let's help showcase this to get more people in our race and to get more attention to it. So it was Hard Rock, it was Leadville, Wasatch, and the Bear. Those were the original 4, and then Bighorn was added on quickly, and then so on and so forth. But the reason we've come to the modern version is because it's just so dang hard to get into some of those other races.
Yeah.
Luckily for ours, we can still just sign up for the Bear. We want to try to keep that as long as possible. But like Hard Rock, I mean, Cody has 256 tickets in the lottery this year. He's been putting in for 11 years. Bryce Warren, has 512. Like it's hard to get in to Hard Rock. And so we wanted to make it more accessible. Now, this is back-to-back podcasts where you're going to have a Carl Meltzer reference.
Uh-oh.
But when we brought this up, Carl was like, well, that's not as hard as what I did. Well, and that's not what we're saying, Carl.
Yeah.
We're just trying to make it more accessible. Nobody's going to argue that Bighorn is harder than Hard Rock. Nobody's going to argue that the Bear is harder than Hard Rock. The original Slam is about as tough as it gets. It really is. But we just want to make it more accessible to people. And when we originally had thought about maybe canceling it, there was enough people that were interested that Cody came up with a way to kind of keep it going and make it more accessible.
That when I first started trail running, and this was a long, long time ago, that was on my bucket. That was my bucket list. That was the creme de la creme. It wasn't Western. It wasn't Hard Rock. It was a Rocky Mountain Slam, because I remember a few people at the time I knew that did it. When it was 4, and then it was when it got expanded to 5, I thought, oh, now is my chance. I get one. I get an off day, right?
Yeah.
And of course, I've never done it, but that was the one to me that had the most, because you've got the Grand Slam, right? That doesn't appeal to me nearly as much as the Rocky Mountain Slam.
If you're a mountain runner, the Rocky Mountain Slam is your jam.
Yeah, because I'm like Jim Skaggs, talking to him, like he did the Grand Slam, and I've known a few people. But yeah, the Rocky Mountain Slam, I'm not getting younger. I would say it's still on my bucket list because I haven't done it, so it's got to stay there. But I would love to be able to do that someday. But when I saw that come out, I got excited. I'm like, sweet. And I'm like, nope. It ain't happening soon.
Yep.
You know?
And there are so many races out there that are worthy of being in this
Sure.
Rocky Mountain Slam. I mean, we've thought about making it a huge list of races because I get requests all the time to add to it. But we're really trying to keep it fairly small.
Yeah.
That's why we like the 2 races a month option that give you some different scenarios. If you don't get into the lottery that you want, you have some other options you can choose from.
Yeah, and like you said, the courses, I haven't been, Wyoming Range, not as familiar with that one for sure, but all the other ones I'm at least familiar with. And man, that's just, I mean, it'd be cool to just do all of them, right? At some point, because they're just that cool of a race, right? But I don't like running in July, so that makes it hard for me. July's
Well, in the
too
San
hot.
Juans, it's not supposed to be hot, but this year was hotter than Western, right?
Yeah, but
Hard Rock was hotter than
It
Western
was
states.
hot.
But how do you get into that thing? That's the
thing.
That's the deal.
Well, you have Uray as an option,
Yeah.
which you can sign up for and just show up and do.
Yeah.
And many would argue is harder than Hard Rock.
Yeah, I think there's when you look at it stat wise, for sure. You know, there's a lot of things there. Anyway, I was super excited to see just a little love to the Rocky Mountain Slam because it was, to me, one of the OGest things in trail and ultra running. I mean, it was awesome. So
Yeah, we had 3 people attempt it this year and 2 finished. Unfortunately, Jeff Browning got injured at the Bear this year.
That's right.
Of all the people to not finish the Bear or the Rocky Mountain Slam, I would have put a lot of money that it wouldn't have been Jeff.
yeah, no, I agree with that one.
It was heartbreaking to hear about his injury and was forced to drop.
So what are some of the more memorable in just a short 2 years you've been doing this? Because you've been a part of it when Leland, but since you've taken it over, what have been some of the most memorable things that you think about?
It's a great question. There's a lot of fond memories. I love seeing first-time 100-milers get to the finish line, and after watching them struggle all day to get to the finish line, their family and friends around them crewing them, I get the privilege of kind of following along the course during the day, and I get to watch a lot of this unfold. But being at the finish line to shake everyone's hand and see friends or spouses of friends who finished it for the first time is really heartwarming. It brought me to tears a couple times as those spouses of friends get to the finish line after supporting their husband or wife for many years, and they kind of flip the script, and the other spouse gets to go try it, their hand at it, and it's really fun to watch.
My favorite thing about it all is just being on the course on race day. That's something that we make a point of doing, is just being out there for the runners as much as possible, because it's incredible to watch the volunteers. It's incredible to watch the runners and crew, and just to be a part of it. And I just love taking in the community that is ultra running in general. 100-mile mountain running is even more niche than that. And then just our Bear 100 family. I mean, it really, it's a great group of people, and I just love seeing everybody. I mean, it's like a big family reunion. I know everybody says that or whatever, but I mean, there's just so many people that I look forward to seeing out there every year.
I also love that my family's a part of it. My wife does a lot of things behind the scenes. She's not she's a very private person, and so she doesn't want any praise or public praise. She'll get mad at me for saying this probably. But she's awesome, and she's out there. She's working just as hard as I am throughout the year, supporting us. My kids help as well. They love being a part of the Bear and watching the success of others. It's really neat.
That's awesome.
Shout out to Beth this is a huge plug. I'm just going to say this. I don't know of another 100-miler that provides free photos to all the runners, professional photos. Beth is an incredible photographer, and she pours her heart into taking great pictures of every runner, and they're free. It's part of what we offer, and I can't tell you how many times I paid for pictures, and these are high quality. I mean, she's incredible. The support she gives the race, and just that alone is worth who knows
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
amount of time.
I don't
and
know.
effort.
The hours she spends on it, it's incredible. She's also a nurse, and so the finish line, she's running around trying to take care of people, but then sprinting back to the finish line to try to capture another moment for somebody else. So she misses some runners here and there, and it's sad when somebody finishes that she doesn't get a good shot of, but it's pretty impressive, all the many hats that she wears.
Well, and that's one of the reasons, like, you think about it sometimes, like, being on a podcast or, doing different things. It's like, oh, help promote the race, right? Like, let's help them. But I mean, obviously it sells out. It's not a big deal. And so the biggest reason, like, having you on is the bear is always, so my favorite animal in the world, my spirit animal, is a bear. This is why this race has eluded me and makes me crazy. But it's one that has always been special to me for not even completing it, right? Like I said, I'm 0 for 1, right? But it's just that whole community piece, right? Like, I think we talk about in a sport that has a lot of change going on in a lot of different ways, and it's been blown up even more the last couple months for a topic we're not talking about. But this is why I wanted to come back with a podcast or stuff like this, the good stuff that goes on. And if you haven't run the bear, you're not familiar with the bear, that's the other reason we want to come on. If you're listening from somewhere else, it's definitely something you have to have. To me, this is my podcast. I can say what I want. But to me, it's the best 100-miler in the state. Like, and we have a lot. We've got quite a few in Utah now, but to me, it's but it captures a lot that I like too. Like the
What do you like about it? Yeah,
I think it's obviously, being in Utah, and that's why I'm saying Utah, because it's close. But if you can get me anywhere in the mountains with Quakies and streams and lakes, that's number one for me. Absolutely, for sure. But again, this was one of the first hundreds I was exposed to. My first was Wasatch I was exposed to. I was exposed to Hard Rock early on, Leadville early on for a friend I followed around, and then the Bear, and I was blown away that you could be away from everything but be so close to civilization, right? Like, when you're out there, you just don't feel like, you just kind of feel like it's just you, right? And it's gorgeous. It is the absolute most stunning, some of the most stunning terrain I've ever been in, to be honest with you. But again, it comes back to that old school, a little bit of lore, maybe because I heard about it more than some people, for sure. But yeah, to me, it's the best 100-mile, and I don't get some flack for this, and that's fine. I'm getting thicker skin, but yeah, it's the best 100-mile in the state.
Well, we agree with you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I don't have to agree. I got no royalties coming in, baby. It's just
You got a hat.
It's super funny. Like, Preston's got the old shirt on, with the Quakey leaf and the bear paw. I've got it tattooed on my shoulder. It's not the exact one, but my daughter, her name is Aspen, and the bear animal is. I have all the bear books you can imagine, and so it's like marries the two of my favorite things. So
that's cool.
Yeah. Anyway, that's easy to see. So we got your most memorable, and I know this is hard, but I do ask the question, like, what are some of the crazier stories?
Oh, I've got.
And you don't have to go in, because I know there's people that make these stories crazy, maybe. But like, I'll get emails from other race directors, like, "Dude, check this out, what I got," and things like that. But what are some of the strange?
I'm going to do two quick ones. So one is that I was running in 2020, and I'm running into Lethem Hollow, and all of a sudden we're chatting along, and two of my buddies are there, John Love and Brian Robbins, and then there's this gal, Rebecca Rich, and all of a sudden I just hear her let out the one swear word that Eric said we couldn't say on the podcast, and she had fallen into a tree branch, and she had gashed her shoulder open, and she ran into Lethem, she got stitches, and she ran out of there and passed me on the road, and she took second place. She was second female. Like, it was incredible. Like, but she had stitches. Like, she got stitches at the aid station and ran out of there. Like, it was pretty gnarly, like stuff poking out of her shoulder. And then the unfortunate crazy story is from year one. Our lead male was on course record pace, Jay Krong. He missed a turn out of Beaver Creek, and all of a sudden I'm getting a call from Seth Waddups, and he's like, "You got to find Ben and Jake," because our buddy Ben Jensen was pacing Jake. And I was like, "Well, what do you mean? He's got to be getting close to being here." And he's like, "No, they're lost. They're somewhere." And so we finally pieced it together, and they had made it to Fish Haven Canyon the wrong way. And so I drove my car up, and I came across Jake and Ben in a side-by-side. Coming down the road, somebody had picked them up as hitchhikers in the middle of the night in the woods, and gave him a ride back. So those are
that's always
two that I
scary.
always think of.
Banjo music time.
Yeah,
that scares me.
That was heartbreaking. I was at the last aid station waiting for him to show up as we're talking to the aid station people and just having a good time, and it was taking longer and longer and longer. And I finally grabbed a couple rolls of tape, marking material, and took off backwards on the course. I'm like, maybe they're lost. And so I went backwards, kind of marking as I go, just to add more marks along the way, and never saw him because he ended up going down a different way, and it's a shame.
That's sad.
It was sad.
Yeah.
He came back this year, ran a great race, finished second. I don't know that he had 17:15 in his legs, but he ran.
Not many people probably do.
I mean, he still ran incredibly fast, and I mean, he had a great day.
He got his redemption.
Yeah.
I've got 17:15 in my legs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
For,
it's usually like
for sure.
6 miles 65.
Yeah, exactly.
Not for a whole 100.
Yeah.
So. What about this year, 2024, Bear? Anything you can talk about that'd be like new, different changes? Anything else, or you just kind of tweaking?
Yeah, I'm trying to keep it as much the same as possible. We love our new finish line. That was a big change this last year, as we were just kind of tweaking a little bit of the mileage along the way. We were able to swap out a section of dirt road and make it single track that was parallel to the road this last year. That was a huge change.
Bless you.
I love that.
Bless you.
I love doing that. So I'm always looking for I call those little tweaks along the way and adjustments, just trying to fine tune things. The Bear has such a legacy. We don't want to change that. We don't want to ruin that. And so there won't be, significant changes if we can help it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything to add. We're just trying to tweak it. I guess one thing to emphasize is we're not trying to make money off this race, and part of my paycheck every year goes to prize money. We offer a $1,000 bonus for any course record, men's or women's field, and then we have prize money for first, second, and third place as well. Is it 500, 300, and 100?
5, 3, and 2.
5, 3, and 2
for both men and women.
So not a lot of people offer prize money. We know it's not a ton of money, but it's just a little extra incentive, and we hope to grow that. And I mean, we had the most competitive. One of the most competitive fields we've ever had this year. We had a lot of fast runners, so that was fun.
I gotta start training harder. I didn't realize there was money.
There's money involved.
I do some weird things for money, man. I will probably have to run harder.
$1,500.
And I'm registering on the 1st, by the way. That's my promise to myself. I'm not getting any younger. So now on a side note, since you're both, I'm gonna put you a little bit on the spot. Not bad, and you don't have to even say because I don't hold any. I'm not strong. What are your running plans this year, each of you? Do you have plans for 2024 that you want to do?
Cody already sent me a spreadsheet of options A, B, and C.
I love it.
So
Me and Cody are going to get along great. I'm a spreadsheet. Everybody that knows me knows how much I love. I got my race spreadsheet. I've got my race spreadsheet with all the races. Then I've got plan A. Then I got plan B.
This is exactly what Cody said.
And then the next one I have is the travel one. So once if we get registered, then I start documenting the travel. That's how I roll.
I've got 5 options. It's not just A, B, and C. It's 1 through 5.
Nice.
Yeah.
What are some hopefuls, or I'll start with Preston. What are you doing in 2024?
So I'd really like to get into Western again.
Yeah.
I've got 16 tickets, which isn't a ton, but it's enough to give me some hope. I put in for Hard Rock again. I don't think I have hardly any chance at all, so I'm not really worried about that. Other than that, I'd like to run maybe 100K again. That's a Western States qualifier because I don't need a Hard Rock qualifier this year because I finished Bighorn last year. So likely going to, run maybe like the Canyons 100K.
Okay.
That I just love being out in that area. It's one of my favorite places to run. And then if not that, maybe Snowy Peaks 50, something like that. But I've got to get a Western qualifier. And then I'm really kind of eyeing the Kodiak 100.
Okay.
100 miler in October in Big Bear, California.
Yep.
Seth just gave it excellent reviews after running it this year. He said it was kind of my style. So those are kind of what I'm looking at. I'm not married to anything except I've got to get a Western qualifier if I don't get in.
Well, speak of Kodiak, just for the listeners, there may or may not be someone he just named coming on the show here pretty soon to talk about the Kodiak 100 if you want more info.
You mean the guy with maybe the best hair in Ogden? Second best.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not saying who has the best, okay? And you're not looking at him right now. What about you, Cody?
For me, I'm hoping for Hard Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, 256 tickets. I've been due for a while. I feel like. So
And Preston knows this. Coming on the show, it increases your chances.
is that the secret?
It really has happened.
Increased
We've had
Trevor's chances.
Preston's. We've had a handful of people that were
It's
like,
good
"Hey,
juju.
yeah, it is
Yeah.
good."
So we're both getting in. Not to Hard Rock.
yeah.
though.
It can only be one of you. So sorry, Preston.
It's for Cody. Cody deserves it. I already got the good vibes.
I've been out pacing at Hard Rock something like 7 times, and I just love it out there.
Yeah.
I actually went out there one year and got sick right before the race.
How sick did you get, Cody?
I actually ended up in the hospital the morning of the race. Instead of pacing, we quickly rushed to
Durango.
no, the other direction, Ridgeway.
Okay.
That
yeah.
way. What
Yeah.
I forgot the name of the city there, but brutal. My spleen was leaking and about to rupture is what I was told. The doctor, I went to the finish line and talked to the race medical team that were all prepping. This was like 7 a.m, just after the race had started. I'm like, I think something's wrong with me. And they pushed on where my spleen by my rib cage, and they had a whole like, hey, everybody come here and check this out. You'll never see this again. And I'm screaming because it hurts so bad. And they're like, do not eat or drink anything and drive immediately to the ER. And so I spent that Hard Rock in the hospital bed and drove home on Sunday after not doing anything. So
I'll give you warm fuzzies here and that.
Yeah.
Don't
That
need a drink,
was
eat at the hospital. Okay.
that was the worst Hard Rock experience. I like to have a better one than that.
So you get into Hard Rock, but just for funsies, you don't. What are your next plans? What other ideas you got?
I've been eyeballing Cascade Crest.
Oh, my wife.
I've
wants that
heard that's amazing. I love the pine trees. It's a gorgeous area.
Yeah.
Love to go out there. We've also been eyeballing some international stuff here and there. Not sure if we'll be able to do that, but maybe we can get out and have some fun.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, my wife wants to get into Cascade. That's her A race this year, and the Bear. She's doing the Bear again, so she's got her pacers lined up for the Bear next year already.
All right.
And
She got
I'm
lined
not
up.
one of them. Yeah, they jumped at it. Like, hey, I want to do it. I want to do it. So she asked me, she goes, so you have pacers lined up? I'm like, no. Like, I just hope I can pay and get in, even though it's not a lottery, So, yeah, pretty fun year next year. Well, I hope you get into Hard Rock. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'm hoping for the best.
Yeah, that would be awesome. There's some people sentimentally that I've really I really want these individuals to get into Hard Rock. I mean, some of these we were going to at one point have our own Hard Rock lottery. I was going to host one.
Yeah.
Like the day before, do the same legit, all the names just to see a different outcome. That's a lot of work, though. I started looking into it, like ticket numbers and names. Like, how fun would that be, though? The day before, do a
mock lottery.
like a fantasy football mock lottery, but doing a Hard Rock.
But then if you get in on the fake one, but not on the real one, that's just like, no.
I think it would be fun.
But for sure this year, Cody and Bryce Warren, they've got to get in.
That'd
Right?
be
Bryce
awesome.
has 512 tickets.
And it's on
It's on Saturday.
July. Is this 13?
The race date?
Yeah.
Yeah, right in the middle of July.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to go out there this year. I think me and my wife, I'm going to talk her into going out on a long weekend, and maybe not that weekend.
Yeah.
Just going like the weekend after the race or
You could
2
talk her
weeks.
into it as a good weekend before Cascade Crest.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the other one. Yeah. If she doesn't get into Cascade, the plan is to do like a runcation.
Like
that
a soft
weekend.
rock.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we've done that before. That was fun. But she hasn't run out there yet, and I love it out there too. I just won't get into her. I'm not even worried about it. So.
One of the other underrated races is the Scout Mountain
Yes.
series. Any of those races are great, and I've been out there a couple times and have done those. Those are great build-ups for it in June, and it's a surprisingly pretty area of the world. You think Pocatello, you're like, Pocatello, but really the mountains outside of Pocatello are neat, and it's Luke puts on a great event, and so I'd recommend that.
Yeah, I ran that when it first came out, Pocatello 50. With
When it was still Jared's race.
Yeah. And ran that one a couple times. I've run it up there since Luke's taken over. First class all the way. Great start finish. The whole thing. Same kind of cool vibe that they do. That is definitely a fun one. I got caught in a blizzard one year when the year they canceled the race.
I was there that year too.
Yeah, I had a short sleeve shirt on and a visor on top of a mountain.
That was
lost.
a mess.
That was nasty.
No amount of clothing could keep you warm on that day.
I was hiding behind sagebrush because it hurt so bad from the side. And I remember that was the second. Tied for the first scariest moment ever trail running for me, for sure.
Really?
Yeah, it was that scary.
Not just in a race, just total.
Huh?
Not just in a race, scary,
yeah.
like total, like, yeah.
And the first year Zion 100 came out.
Okay.
I ran that, and I was on top of the mesa, and there was no flagging.
Oh.
And so me and a group of 4 people were lost for 3.5 hours.
Oh.
That's wild. I was so happy to hear that it had canceled during the race because they were hiking up the back of the course to tell us, and because I was going to drop. I'm like, there's no way I'm going up and over Scout Mountain in this blizzard.
Oh, yeah.
It is too dangerous.
Yeah, that was crazy. But it is great. You're right. It is put on first class. Great race.
Weather's tricky.
Weather you can't control, folks. Like we keep getting back of it, especially in the ranges around here. So, well, hey, thank you both so much for coming on. I know it takes time to do that, but as we relaunch, just have some fun guests. And the Bear's always been near and dear to my heart, so it's fun to get you both on here, hear a little bit of the stories, some of the history, and again, just what makes it a first-class event. I think there's just, could have just so many episodes of what makes it what it is, behind the scenes, volunteers, people involved. But yeah, it's always great when you have people like that involved too, to make it just a little bit more special. But thanks for doing what you do. Thanks for keeping it the way it is and bringing so much to the trail community in general. If you don't know, you might know Preston. He's been on before. But if you don't know Cody, super nice guy. Again, we have good humans on the podcast, not just runners. So that's what makes it even more special. So thank you both again for coming on. Any closing thoughts?
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. I came down just to run with Preston and run on some Ogden trails. I love it down here, so it's great.
Pretty special place for sure.
During the winter, Cody makes the trek often.
They have sunlight here. It's crazy. the frozen tundra up north, we don't have the sun.
Any sunlight.
Yep.
Well, if Turtle Miller, when he listens, he just says, "Suck it, Northern Utah," type thing. But I was down in his neck of the woods a couple of weeks ago, and it was pretty decent. So I'll give him that. So, yeah, thanks again for coming on. Wish you both the best of luck, especially in the lotteries coming up, and of course, looking forward to the Bear in September.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you for listening to the TrailManners podcast. I'd like to thank Cody Draper and Preston Wood for joining us today. I also want to encourage everyone to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at TrailManners, or swing by the website at TrailManners.com. There you can click on the donate button or check out our store page for some cool TrailManners gear. Both donations and purchases sure help the show. And you can always hit us up on the contact page or email me at manners@trailmanners.com and let me know what you'd like to see, who you'd like to hear, or even if you would like to be on the show. Also, don't forget to share us with your friends, and if you could take just a minute to subscribe to the show and leave us a rating and review on iTunes, I would greatly appreciate that. And don't worry, all these links are in our show notes. Until next time, this is Eric Manning, still reminding you, you don't get what you wish for, you get what you work for. Now go get it.